Hi! Welcome to our presentation, where we will have the pilot's health in focus. We hope you enjoy. The pilot profession is highly regarded in the society, but at the same time highly demanding. Our interest in the pilot's health in this paper stretches from the moment they start their education at the OSM Aviation Academy to the end of their career. Great amount of studying over a short period of time combined with the practical parts that needs to be conducted in order to become a licensed pilot is putting a lot of pressure on the young pilot already from the start. The fact that the aviation industry is a very elastic market continues to worry even the most experienced pilot. With this paper, we will hopefully give a better insight to how the health has been affected, both during the studies of becoming a pilot and during their professional career. With the help of surveys and interviews, we have received information from both former and current students. Pilots with many years of experience and an aeromedical examiner. This is made to get the full perspective of the health situation among the dedicated people working in aviation industry. On this picture, you can see some subjects that are challenges to a pilot's mental health. For example, adapting to time zone changes and irregular work schedules. The benefits of a job in aviation are many. A change of scenery, good atmosphere among crew, strong occupational pride, and a long periods of days off in between shifts. Despite all the positive matters mentioned above, the interest in this project from our point of view is to see in how great extent the job as a pilot is affecting our health, and in extension maybe also our lives. How much studies has been done and what are the results? Another interesting subject is what can be done in the everyday work to make our chances for a healthier and sounder lifestyle as a pilot better. The regulations are quite straightforward regarding hours of work and rest periods, but there might be other aspects as long periods of sitting still in the cockpit, noise, pressure, and shift work that is affecting the health of a pilot and should be taken into account when looking at the bigger picture. Our thoughts in general is that aviation has gone through major changes the last decades, both regarding competition about the customers since low-cost airlines made their way into the industry, and also new regulations coming from the environmental challenges that the world stands in front of at this moment. It is possible that a combination of changes is pushing the companies harder now to make a profit and that this might reflect on the job as a pilot. With this in mind, we chose to focus on the following questions. How does the studies to become a pilot affect our health? How does the work as a pilot affect our health? What can we do to increase well-being amongst pilots? Before we continue, we had the opportunity to follow some student pilots during a few weeks in flight school. We got to go behind the scenes and see the reality of their lives without Instagram filters. We will now show you the first part of the documentary.
Our project is mainly based on a student survey that we did at our school, and we also decided to conduct interviews with experienced pilots and an aeromedical examiner concerning health among pilots today compared to when they started their careers. The questions that we asked during the interviews with the professional pilots and the AME were quite similar. Focus there was on how they felt stress affected them and how it has changed over the years since they started their journey. We will come back to these interviews later during this presentation, but first we should take a look at the results from the survey. We sent out the survey to both former and current students at OSM Aviation Academy. The questionnaire focused on health and well-being among the students during different phases of their education. This graph shows which class the participants attended, and as you can see, quite many came from our class YH19 and the FOP19. Around 45% of the answers came from current students and the remaining 55% from former students, going back as early as 2013. We compared the results between women and men but couldn't see anything that stood out from the rest of the results. The graph to the right shows which age the participants were when they started studying. We divided them into 3 different groups: under 25, 25 to 30 and 30 years and above. As you can see here, the youngest group was the biggest and only 7% were above 30 years when they started studying. Dragos will now show you the difference that we saw between the different block and the different ages.
The diagram shows the overall result over how students answered that sleep, stress, eating habits, overall health and social life have affected them in a negative way during the different blocks of the education. All bars have a similar pattern with an increase from block 1 to block 2 and then seeing a decrease over block 3 and the post-theory phase. It can be seen that block 2 is the period that affected the students the most in all categories, with stress and social life reaching well above 3 on a 5-degree scale, whilst in the post-theory phase there is a large decrease in all of the different categories. Students in the survey were also asked if they believed that their results on the theory exams were affected by having scheduled flight, and of course the opposite, if they felt like performance during flight sessions were affected during an exam period. The results can be seen in the diagram, where only a few students felt like it was affecting them in a positive way, whilst the majority believed it affected them in a negative way. To receive a better and clearer understanding, we will be looking at each block separately, starting with the first block, where we will see that students under the age of 25 were most affected by stress. For the older students, the age of 25 and above, social life was the dominating factor that was most affected. Sleep and eating habits for the same group was least affected, and for students under the age of 25, there is no clear category. There is almost an equal level between sleep, eating habits, and overall health, and only 7.2% of all the students asked felt the need to cancel a flying session due to too much stress. Now, continuing on to the second block, which contains many demanding courses such as radio navigation, general navigation, airframes, system and power plants. This combined with increase of flying resulted in the block where students felt most psychological pressure. There is a general increase compared to block 1 in both how stress and sleep were affected. Stress is affected most for students under the age of 25 and less for students above the age of 30. For students between the age of 25 and 30, the social life was most affected, whilst eating habits and overall health remains less affected. The youngest students, under the age of 25, have an equal level of impact on the different categories. In this phase, almost 23% of all participants answered that they had to cancel a flight lesson because they felt unfit for flight due to too much stress. This is a big difference in comparison with the previous block. After the second block, the participants seemed to feel much better, and an improvement in all of the different categories of their health and stress levels decreased to approximately the same level as they were in the first block. Just like in the two previous blocks, stress is still the highest affecting factors for students under the age of 25, and for this block also students above the age of 30. For students between the age of 25 and 30, the social life was most affected. 12.3% had to cancel a flight due to too much stress, which is a decrease from block 2 but higher than block 1. The last block is the post-theory phase. We can clearly notice a great improvement of the health among students, and the stress levels went down a lot compared to the other blocks. The substitute, however, to stress for the theory in this block is the uncertainty about the future, and almost 77% of all students answered that they were worried about landing the job of their dreams after they finished their education.
In addition to our survey that focused on the pilot students during their education, we also conducted interviews with both experienced pilots and an aeromedical examiner. The reason for this was to see if there has been any changes in the health among the pilots during the years, and to compare the pilots and the aeromedical examiner's point of view on this topic. 3 pilots with a lot of experience were interviewed about their career and how their occupation has affected their health over the years, and if they experienced any changes from early in the career up until now. The pilot says that they experience more stress today due to scheduling, new technology, new procedures, and so on, and that the free time between flights is way less compared to what it has been. One of the pilots explains the difference between working as a pilot now and then.
We worked less and got paid more. Nowadays we work as much as legally possible, which is a lot more, and we have less private life. I mean, I was barely there for my youngest son when he grew up.
2 of the pilots that were interviewed claimed to have felt the necessity to take a smaller break from work because of stress. The stress was developed from too much scheduled flights and because of time needed for preparation for the checks. The 3rd pilot told us that he very seldom has worked full-time.
It is just not worth it for me. I rather take less pay and more time off. I see some colleagues that is working full-time, trying to do the whole family part as well, and it is hard when you're traveling a lot.
To combine shift work with family and social life can be hard and sometimes lead to stress. Another factor is that it is a quick-moving industry with many ups and downs, as we can see today in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic.
I have been lucky 2 times. When SAS grounded a Dash aircraft back in 2007, I had just enough time to be transferred to another part of the company instead of getting fired. Next time things started to go down, I just started my 6-month-long parental leave, and then I was protected as the notice period of 6 months started after parental leave, and when that time came, they started to hire again.
He then continues.
The industry has definitely changed since I started, and even more if we go back in time to when my dad worked for SAS. When he flew long haul, there was not a stopover shorter than 3 days. But this was before the deregulation in 1992, and SAS was the dominant airline alone on the market. Now there is a whole new situation with the low-cost airlines.
We met with aeromedical examiner Jan Nyström to discuss different health issues among pilots and reasons for withdrawal of the pilot's medical certificate. High blood pressure is the main reason for professional pilots to see an aeromedical examiner, and is also one of the most common reasons for a temporary withdrawal of the medical class 1. Another reason for withdrawal of the medical certificate is more severe diseases as coronary or angina. The medical is then withdrawn until further and the patient has to undergo extensive examinations. High blood pressure can also be related to stress. Rostering and tight scheduling is a common factor of stress and something that has been increased over the years. Competition among operators leads to a maximization of the crew scheduling within the limits of the regulations. There has been accidents caused by pilots with mental health problems, Germanwings Flight 9525 being one that caused biggest attention throughout the aviation industry and the general public. In the summer of 2019, the Swedish Civil Aviation Authority stated that a check of the psychological health and well-being were to be included in the medical examination for pilots. Although psychological and mental health problem is becoming more accepted, it is still considered taboo to talk about, especially in the older generation. There is a fear of being labeled and that you are never able to work again. Today there is a general knowledge of the benefits of exercising and people are more aware of the need of a healthy lifestyle. Being a pilot means a sedentary lifestyle and this has to be counteracted by exercising. As a result of this, there has been a reduction in heart diseases over the years, but instead an increase of injuries associated with exercising, such as damages to the muscles and joints.
Fatigue and stress amongst pilots is frequently mentioned in media, but it is also a popular topic for research and investigations. Transportstyrelsen, together with Stressforskningsinstitutet, introduced the Project Charles to see how the new flight limitations affected the Swedish commercial airline pilots. The conclusion that we take from reading the final report from the project is that most other pilots are overall generally satisfied with their job and profession. The problem rather seemed to be time and schedule related, with long and irregular shifts. The most negative impact was likewise the result from OSM Aviation Academy on social life and then followed by disturbed sleep when on duty. A positive discovery is that it was a fairly large amount of pilots rating their general health high.
The survey was confirming how we felt and feel for the future of our career. All educations are difficult and stressful in their own way. However, in addition, a pilot student have an additional fact that needs to be taken into account that is not always experienced by other students in other fields: the fixed amount of tries and a limited time to finish the theory. A lot of time is spent on forcing the great amount of information given during a short period, and the student doesn't always have a possibility to take a longer break to recharge, creating stress even to the most relaxed person. Recommendations given to the future students are to keep themselves active, eat as healthy as possible, and not forget to take breaks to socialize with family and friends. From the interviews, the general conclusion is that with time, for the pilots in the aviation industry has changed from being glamorous to a regular job. More companies compete with each other and thus putting more pressure on schedule and in the end, amongst others, the pilot. The result of this being less time with family. On the positive side, pilots are more and more aware of their health and spend time working out to prevent future diseases. It begins with a dream at young age that evolves into the possibility to actually fulfill that dream when accepted to the education. It will not be easy and it will require time, focus, and a few sacrifices. Once the education finishes, one is still not guaranteed a job as a pilot. The aviation industry is unfortunately not stable, and one is never guaranteed anything, even after many years of practice.
The job as a pilot means a sedentary lifestyle. The same goes for students, being deep inside their books all day. Remember, Even the simplest disease can have a huge consequence on the career as a pilot. To overcome this, we have shared our favorite exercises in the following movie that can easily be performed at home or in the hotel room. Thank you for listening to our presentation and take care of your health.
Wait! How did it go for our students? Did they make any changes in their lifestyle?
Well, it is time to find out.